Now, nearly 200 countries are working fervently to salvage a comprehensive deal on climate change. This comes as the climate change conference draws to a close in Dubai. Esther Mokbarila reports.
A recent backlash, particularly on the issue of fossil fuels, has ignited tensions among key players, including the United States, EU, small island nations and the UK, who argue that the proposed plan falls short of expectations.
This was
a COP that started off very positively, with an agreement to give money to all the countries in the world that are hit hardest by climate change. But since then, there has been no progress. Now, of course, I can't quote directly from the negotiations I've been involved in, but I can say in general terms that we are very far apart from each other. We need to exert massive pressure so that the countries that are against progress right now realize that the rest of the world community disagrees.
Burning
fossil fuels is a primary driver of global warming, posing a severe risk to millions of lives. Remarkably, governments have never collectively agreed to halt their use. As the discussions unfold at COP28, the world anxiously awaits to see if these nations can bridge their differences and forge a path towards a collective commitment to combat climate change. Esther Mokbarila, TVC News.
Joining us now for an in-depth look into the climate summit and nuts that still have to be cracked as a climate and environmental rights campaigner, Babawale Obanyoju. Thank you for joining us on the news this hour. What would you say is the biggest achievement made in 12 days of the Dubai summit in this regard?
Well, thank you for inviting me here. Biggest achievement would be that the people's voice from Egypt last year was upheld with the operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund, which in itself, it's not a complete victory, but it's something that we need to celebrate. It's a small victory that we must celebrate. And having that these governments have made pledges to the tune of about 700 million plus in that fund, which we are hoping they will truly fulfill, is a big start to the progress that we expected or we are expecting at this year's COP in Dubai. But on the flip side of it, like the first reporter just mentioned, for the world and for us in Africa and the global south in Nigeria, not to be held bound to the impacts of climate change, there's need for a complete phase out of fossil fuel while we transit to clean renewable energy. What have we seen from the COP in the last text that have come out in the past few hours, few minutes ago? Sadly, this is not the case. The agreement on the text from the global stock take only made mention of reducing both consumption and production of fossil fuel in a just, orderly, equitable manner.
Indeed, there's what they call the carbon capture and storage projects, such a way that you can take, the industrial CO2 out of the public and use it for something else. Are you saying that isn't a better alternative to carbon phase out?
The truth about the matter is, I will ask a simple question. If you get into your room, for example, and you find water in your sitting room, on the floor of your sitting room, what should you normally do? You should locate the tap that the water is coming from and shut it. It's not a matter of getting mops or sophisticated mops to mop the ground. The best thing to do is to shut the tap at source. So the carbon market and carbon market scheme that is being projected at the COP and in different spaces would make this climate impact and climate change disaster increase. It's just simply put a pollution license to help those who are already polluting and extracting to keep extracting while they come to global south, buy up the lands that we are still trying to manage to do our farms, our forests we're trying to protect, to buy them and deprive community furthermore, in addition to the impact they're already facing. So the carbon market scheme is a false solution. The true solution that we should be talking about here is a phase out of fossil fuel. And sadly, our Nigerian government is not even saying anything positive. And to the other side, I wouldn't blame them, because the global north, who should be paying up for the damage that they have done historically with the extraction of fossil fuel around the world and releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and not fulfilling their part of the story. They are not making funds available for global south countries to be able to transit easily to the clean renewable energy. And even in this new text, there's a part that says there will be a push to triple the renewable energy drive in and around the world by 2030. And what that means for us in Africa, in the global south, is that we are going to have more mining and more impact. And who's going to bear it? The community people. So the true solution is to stop the extraction of fossil fuel at source. And
you talked about Nigeria. I'm wondering how much damage we're doing relative to the other parts of the world. But recall that earlier this year, we adopted a new methane guideline that includes some mandatory measures for oil and gas companies and, things of that nature. For instance, leak detection, reducing methane emissions from oil and gas, and what have you. Are you saying we aren't trying at all?
I wouldn't say we aren't trying. But we are not trying enough because there's no time. This matter is a matter of urgency. And just a few days ago, the DG of the NCC said Nigeria does not have phase out of fossil fuel in its position. What does that mean for the people of Nigeria? That means, guys, enjoy the floods, enjoy the climate change impacts, keep enjoying it while we keep extracting. So if the people are at the center of the heart of our government, they should put the people first and consider what will benefit them. For example, now, what are the emergency measures put in place in case a flood comes again? Aside the early warning system that they bring up and tell communities move to a higher place, with which funds? And who's going to pay or move them to a place for temporary residence? Who's going to pay for that? So the government should have joined us while we are shouting and asking the government for the global north to pay up the climate debt owed us and make funds available to transit. Instead, our governments are there saying they are not going to phase out, that phase out is not in their position, that they are going to embrace carbon market, and it's going to keep us in more problem.
Interesting.
A Kuri case in Cross River is a typical example. When we opened up the forest for REDD+ project, how did it impact on Nigeria? Did we get the benefit from the REDD+ project? Was it beneficial to us? Rather, the people suffer. They lost their land, they lost their livelihood. We lost our forest, our precious animals that were there, even the ones that were going extinct, that were just reserved in that forest. We lost many of them.
All right.
So at the end of the day, we're going to
We'll
lose.
definitely see how it all plays out, particularly as we count down to the final hours of the COP28 and see what deal stakeholders can get out of this. Climate and environmental rights campaigner Babawale Obanyoju, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.